Hi guys, I think I should be audible and visible. Hello everyone. Okay, so good to go with the second RC. I hope you guys have been able to look into this and solve this RC. चलिए शुरू करते हैं. Just give me one moment. Okay, I must be visible again. All good? Great, wonderful. So let's start with today's RC. Let me just paste this somewhere here. Today's RC was titled Darwinism and Hellenic Idols. And today's RC was from your CAD exam, was from one of your CAD previous year's papers, and 5 questions, 468 words. ठीक है? And then we'll follow the general जो आपका इसमें तरीका होता है उस तरह से हम लोग जाएंगे. That's how we'll go about it. We will first 15 minutes we'll spend on going through a brief overview of the passage. Next 30 minutes solving the questions, and finally 15 minutes for query redressal. Okay, this is a session that is packed with some very quick discussion. So I would expect you guys to be responsive. Okay, just give me one moment. I just have to keep आपका it would be useful to have your comments open for me here so that I can address your queries right away. Address your queries right away. All right, I think we are good to go. So starting with the first part, there were 3 paragraphs in the passage. Overall, आपके इसमें मिला के सब 3 paragraphs थे passage के अंदर. See, I'll try to give you an overview. Let's start with the most simple and the most low resolution but yet effective gist that we can come up for this passage. Okay, so the passage talks about Darwinism. The passage talks about Hellenic idols. The passage talks about moral code of Christianity. The passage talks about doctrines, uh, uh, doctrines connected with Darwinism altering our moral principles. Right. So it sounds like a lot of complex discussion taking place, but if you really see, it's actually quite simple. So what the author says here is that the final POV is point of view, right? Whenever I say POV, it stands for point of view. So get used to that. So the author's point of view, the author has actually written a passage as a counterpoint to a general conception that people seem to have, right? कि generally जो लोग believe करते आ रहे हैं उसके counter में author ने ये passage लिखा ऐसा लिखा होगा. That's the angle from which he has written the passage. Okay, now what is the general belief that the author is trying to address? वो क्या general belief है जिसके against author ने अपने point of views यहाँ पे दिए हैं, right? He says in the first part the author expresses his disagreement with a prevalent belief, right? So there's an assumed prevalent belief that the author mentions in the first part, and then he kind of says that this is something that I don't agree with, and he gives and provides his own reason for the same. Okay, what is the prevalent belief? The prevalent belief is simply this, that Darwinism वाला जो आपका idea है, Darwinism idea might probably be related to natural selection, or maybe the theory of natural selection, or maybe something else related to Darwin, or it might be a different Darwin altogether. We don't know that, right? So far as the purview of the passage is concerned, हम लोग वो assumption नहीं ले सकते. हम बस ये मान सकते हैं कि whatever Darwinism is, or whatever are the doctrines that connect with, that are derived from Darwinism. ये जो आपकी doctrines हैं जो Darwinism पे based है, Darwinism की theory पे based है, या फिर Darwinism खुद, there is a prevalent belief that these doctrines, okay, or Darwinism or these doctrines, they have changed our moral principles. They are kind of changing. वो हमारे जितने भी moral principles हैं या फिर हमारे जो भी ideas हैं उन सब में changes लेके आ रहे हैं, right? इसकी वजह से like this is kind of impacting our moral principles. It has impacted or altered our principles and उसको change किया है इसने, right? This is the prevalent belief according to the author. And the author shows his disagreement with respect to this. कि नहीं यार मेरे को ऐसा नहीं. Author says that no, I don't believe that Darwinism has changed our moral principles. Author in fact says that no, Darwinism has not delta is for changed. He says that Darwinism has not changed the moral principles. Moral principles are exactly what they used to be. इसमें कोई फर्क नहीं हुआ है. Darwinism has only helped to better conceive these moral principles, have only helped in the better conception of these moral principles, in a better understanding of these moral principles. That's his idea. Okay, and then he that's the first point. ये पूरा first paragraph में author ने यही point बताया. पूरा आपको अगर आप देखेंगे, it seems like there is a lot of complex discussion that is taking place. Frankly, no. The idea is actually very simple. The idea is that people believe that the doctrines of Darwinism have altered our moral principles. Darwinism की doctrines ने हमारे सारे moral principles and बहुत सारी चीजों को change किया है. ऐसा नहीं है. Rather, what has happened here is that Darwinism at max has just helped us better construe or better understand our moral principles, right? So I hope that's clear. ठीक है. So he देखिए एक बार बहुत ही जल्दी से हम लोग ये फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ रीड भी कर लेते हैं आपके लिए. That the doctrines connected with the name of Mr. Darwin are altering our principles has become a sort of commonplace thing to say, right? So this is the prevalent point of view that he says. Prevalent belief जो author ने यहाँ पे note किया. Next he says, and moral principles are said to share in this general transformation. कि हाँ यार लोग कह रहे हैं कि doctrines ने हमारे principles को alter कर दिया है, and then this is true with moral principles as well. Okay, and then he says, then he posits his own point of view. He says that, but I don't think why Darwinism need change our ultimate moral ideas. मुझे नहीं लगता कि ऐसा हुआ है. It will not modify our conception of the end, right? So far as he defines moral principles, को author ने दो terms में define किया. One is like what is the end goal in terms, so far as the moral principles are concerned, what is the end goal? Okay, and the second is what are the means to reach that goal, right? तो एक होता है आपका what do you say, one is your destination and the other is the road that leads to it, right? So your end goal is the destination and the road that leads to it is the means. Okay, so he says that so far as the end goal is concerned, in the context of moral principles, they have not been modified. कुछ change नहीं आया वहाँ. Okay, and unless of course we have been holding views which long before Darwin were out of date. मतलब अगर हम लोग पहले से ही बहुत पुराने views hold करके रख रहे हैं, then it's our problem. That's not the Darwinism that has changed that. Okay, so that's basically our concern, that we have not been able to revive it. We did not revive it in time. Okay, so and he says as to the principles of ethics is the same moral principle, is the same reference. ये आपका same ही reference है. I perceive with in short. So in short मैं ये कहना चाह रहा हूँ, author says that in short मैं ये कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि यार moral principles या principles of ethics में कोई changes नहीं हुए. There is no sign of revolution. Okay, I hope that's clear. Darwinism has indeed helped many to a truer conception of the end, but I cannot admit that it has either originated or modified that conception. So it has helped with a better conception of the end goal of moral principles of the end, but it has not altered or modified them. Okay, I hope this first paragraph is clear to everyone. थोड़ा सा हम लोग जल्दी चलना पड़ता है guys, because see we have just 1 hour to complete the passage and the question and everything. So my reliance is going to be on how responsive can you be if you have any doubts or queries. ठीक है? So ensure that कि अगर जो भी doubts हो तो आप उसको यहाँ पे comments में डाल दें. In the second part, the author builds on his point of view with respect to Darwinism still being revolutionary and also explains in what manner. Now see, first part में author ने क्या कहा कि यार so far as this moral principles वाला जो पूरा idea है आपका, right? Moral principles आपके, there are two aspects to moral principles. Okay, he says like we can understand the way the author has talked about moral principles, that there are two aspects to your moral principles. One are the end goals of the moral principles, correct? एक तो आपके end goals हो गए, और दूसरा the other is the means to reach those end goals, the means to reach those end goals. Okay, that's the second item. Now the author says in the second part that uh, like, though I do believe that Darwinism has not altered, or the doctrines related with Darwinism, they have not altered their end goals. They have done nothing to the end goals, or they have not affected the moral principles in the aspect of altering the end goals. But I still believe that Darwinism has been revolutionary, so, with respect to moral principles. फिर वो revolutionary तो है, but क्यों? Why? Because it might not have altered the end goals, but it has given us a better means of judging the means to get to the end goals, right? So it has actually given us better frameworks of judging, for judging the means that can be used to get to the end goals, right? So ये moral principles के context में Darwinism has been revolutionary, but not by altering the end goals, but rather by giving you better judgment or better frameworks of judging the means to get to the end goals. Is this idea clear? I hope this is clear. I hope I've been able to make this clear to you. Okay, got it? See, he says, and yet in ethics means, again, in the context of moral principles, that it relates with that. After all, Darwinism, after all, may perhaps be revolutionary. It may lead to not another view about the end, right? So it has not altered the end goals view, but to a different way of regarding the relative importance of the means, right? But to a different way of judging the uh, the relative importance of the means, कि कितना important है आपका means, ठीक है? Okay, for in the ordinary, and then he goes on to describe ये author ने जो पूरा यहाँ पे POV रखा, ये broad POV, then he goes on to describe this POV in detail, and I'll tell you, मैं आपको detail को मैं संक्षेप में आपको यहाँ पे बता देता हूँ एक बार. So what he says is that see, for in the ordinary moral creed, those means seem to be estimated, like जो हमारा general ordinary moral creed जो हमारा है, the way of beliefs, the system of beliefs that we have, उसमें these means that we have to achieve certain ends, they seem to be they don't seem to be founded on some rational principles, right? कि हाँ हम लोग इस तरीके से हम लोग, so the end goals are fine हमारे ethics की, but so far as the means to achieve those end goals is concerned, these means don't seem to be based on some rational foundations. इसके कोई rational foundation नहीं है, ऐसे ही बना के आ गए, right? We have the and then he gives an example. We have the moral code of Christianity, but accepted in part and rejected part, and in part rejected practically by all save a few fanatics. But we do not realize how in its very principle the Christian ideal is false. Again, वो बस exemplification, but the idea is same. कि okay, means आपका rational basis पे founded नहीं है, ठीक है? And then he says, and when we reject this code for another, and when we the means that you have, which is not founded on rational principles, when you reject this, then you end up in a chaotic situation. Okay, and when we reject this code for another, and in part a sounder morality, we are in the same condition of blindness, see, chaotic situation, and of practical confusion. And is practical confusion वाले situation में, is chaotic situation में, Darwinism comes to our rescue, right? So you can think of it something like this, that let's say there is a certain way of doing things that you believe कि नहीं ये ऐसे होना चाहिए. For example, let's say, okay, let's say you're playing football, okay, and you believe that okay, you should always focus more on speed, okay, or speed and power, right? ये दो चीज पे आपको focus करना चाहिए, so that you'll be able to be a good player. And then suddenly you realize that your hypothesis of focusing on speed and power doesn't make sense, like it is not founded on any rational principles. So you decide that कि नहीं यार इसको हटाना पड़ेगा. I need to think of something else. जब आप ये जो आपका hypothesis, आपका ये principle था कि मेरे को best footballer बनने के लिए speed and power पे ध्यान देना है, इसको जो आप हटा देंगे यहाँ पे, now do you have a different or a new set of beliefs already? No, you don't. Initially you don't, right? Initially you are like in a chaotic situation, you're kind of blind here, right? And that's where Darwinism come in. So according to the author, कि ऐसे situation में some fundamental principles can come into the picture कि okay, ठीक है, and can help which define the end goals more clearly. कि आपको best footballer बनना है तो okay, so what does it mean to be a best footballer? Like is it someone who can pass balls properly, वैसा है, like define and so on and so forth. So basically, when you let go of a certain set of beliefs which are not founded on rational logic, then you first end up in a chaotic situation, and then Darwinism comes into the picture with a clearer conception of the end and helps you come up with a new set of beliefs. Okay, that's what he's trying to say. यहाँ मैंने आपको एक एग्जांपल में एम्बेड करके समझाने की कोशिश की है यहाँ पे. Actually फुटबॉल का डिस्कशन नहीं हो रहा है यहाँ पे. I hope that's clear to everyone who's watching this. Okay, so it is here that Darwinism, with all the tendencies we may group under that name, seems destined to intervene. It will make itself felt, I believe, more and more effectually. It may force on us in some points a correction of our moral views, ठीक है, and a return. So see, once you see, you need to understand एक बहुत ही important point जो होता है ना आपका RC में, जो and which is a great advantage if you know this. अगर आपको एक चीज समझ में आ जाए, it's a great advantage to have this piece of information. And the piece of information is this, that once you have understood the gist of a certain idea that the author wants to convey, you can really amp up the speed at which you're reading the passage, and that you can save that a lot of time for yourself, and then which can be better used in with questions. Okay, and then, like, think of this like listening to a friend, like talking to a friend of yours, and who's trying to relate to your story, or who's trying to give you कि यार एक बार ऐसा हुआ, मैं अपने ऑफिस में गया था and ये सब चल रहा था, तो बाद में, and then you at some point of, like, while he's 35% into his story, and you've already having a good grasp of or maybe some background with respect to his ideas, जो कुछ भी है, you've already understood what he wants to convey in the story. आपको उसकी कहानी already पता चल गई कि हाँ यार ये बोलना चाह रहा है. Now it will, like, you can almost predict what he's going to be talking about, right? So why is that? क्यों आप उसकी आगे की बात अपने आप समझ सकते हो कि अच्छा हाँ तो फिर ये हुआ होगा, ये हुआ होगा, ये होगा. Why? Because you've gotten hold of the gist of what he wants to convey, and that's exactly how it works when it comes to RCs. So that's why it's so much important for you to be looking for the gist and not to be blinded by these specific ये जो words आ जाते हैं, vocab आ जाता है उससे. Obviously, to some extent, vocab is important. शेख अमीर अहमद, हाँ शेख, आप कह रहे हैं कि हाँ ये कैसे मिले. तो देखिए, इसके कुछ तरीके ये होते हैं कि ठीक है, चलो मैं आपको बता दूं इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या नहीं करना है. लेट्स टॉक अबाउट शेख फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल कि क्या नहीं करना है. अभी हमने कल का मैंने जो क्लास किया था, आप एक बार जाके देखेंगे, मैंने आपको एक चीज बताई थी कि an RC is never 500 words. It's always just 4 to 5 ideas. You need to start looking at RCs in terms of ideas and not in terms of a set of words. Okay, like ideal in an ideal world जहाँ पे चीजें एकदम बेस्ट तरीके से हो सकती थी, the best way of communication would be when a person can directly transmit the ideas that they have into your brain. Correct? Language comes into the picture because we don't have that as yet. अभी हमारे पास वो नहीं, इसलिए लैंग्वेज आता है, इसलिए हमें पूरा वर्ड्स में करके समझाना पड़ता है. But what the person always wants to communicate to you is the central idea. Okay? तो जब भी आप, तो पहली चीज जो आपको करनी है शेयर यहाँ पे, and others who might be listening, what you need to do is you need to, like, get this. ये एक चीज आपको समझ लेनी है कि you're reading the RC to understand the idea. Always keep fetching for the idea. Don't worry about कि यार ये एक सेंटेंस पे पता नहीं ये बोला या ये बोला है. थोड़ा चलने दो, थोड़ा, like let's for example let's say कि your paragraph has 5 sentences. आपने पहला सेंटेंस पढ़ा, आपको थोड़ा बहुत समझ में आ गया. सेकंड सेंटेंस में सेकंड सेंटेंस का लेटर पार्ट उतना समझ में नहीं आया, तो डोंट फ्रेट ओवर इट. व्हाई? बिकॉज यू आर लुकिंग फॉर द आइडिया, राइट? थोड़ा समझा ना, देखो क्या बोल रहा है आगे. थर्ड सेंटेंस पे चले जाओ, फोर्थ थोड़ा समझ में आएगा, फोर्थ थोड़ा समझ में आएगा, फिफ्थ में आधा समझ में आया. So what students do is they get stuck on these specifics and these words and these small parts of the sentences, and then उसमें बाद में फिर वो उसमें फंस जाते हैं, वो आइडिया को भूल जाते हैं. लेकिन यहाँ पे तो बस आइडिया जानना है. अगर आप आइडिया के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे, आप वर्ड्स के ऊपर फोकस यहाँ नहीं करेंगे, लाइक द स्पेसिफिक और द लैंग्वेज के ऊपर आप फोकस उतना नहीं करोगे, in that case you will not be stuck by these small obstacles. You'll be more focused on कि okay finally क्या बोलना चाह रहे हैं. Okay, so what not to do is to not get stuck on these tiny parts. हाँ ऑफ कोर्स, अगर पूरा ही आरसी के एक भी शब्द ही नहीं समझ में आ रहा है तो बात अलग है, वहां पे फिर हमें बेसिक्स पे, फंडामेंटल्स पे काम करना पड़ेगा. समझे मेरी बात? सो the key is to understand that you're fetching for ideas, you're not fetching like ठीक है. ये आप उसमें उसके थोड़ा बहुत जो chaos आ रहा है कि नहीं यार यहाँ पे पता नहीं क्या बोलते, उसे परेशान मत. ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है आरसी पढ़ते समय. मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स जैसे ही कुछ पार्ट आएगा अरे वो बाद में उनके दिमाग में क्या हो अरे क्या हो रहा है यार, समझ नहीं आ रहा, मजा नहीं आ रहा, वैसा हो जाएगा। गॉट इट? ठीक है, चलो आगे चल रहा हूँ मैं। सो अब यहाँ पे देखो लाइक इस पैराग्राफ के अंदर द आइडिया इज प्रीटी सिंपल मैन। लाइक इट से ही सेज कि यार एंड गोल्स को उसने चेंज नहीं किया है, मींस को चेंज किया है। एंड मींस को चेंज करने का एग्जांपल देते कि हमारा क्रीड है, मैंने आपको पूरा बता दिया, राइट? आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू रिपीट दैट। सो दैट्स व्हाट ही सेज, राइट? एंड व्हेन पुराने आपके प्रिंसिपल्स मींस चले जाते हैं, देन देयर इज अ पीरियड ऑफ chaos where Darwinism comes into the picture and helps you create a new set of beliefs। ठीक है, ये आपका था यहाँ पे। नेक्स्ट आते हैं, लेट्स कम टू पार्ट 3। पार्ट 3 में, पार्ट 3 is the simplest part actually। Why? Because the way you have in quant के अंदर या mathematics के अंदर you always एक आपको theory या theorem दिया जाता है, उसके बाद then there are solved examples। The same structure has been followed in this passage। पहले author ने अपना point of view आपको बता दिया, उसके बाद यहाँ पे solved example आ गया। So he first showed you, he demonstrated कि he basically explained why डार्विनिज्म कोई नया एंड नहीं लेके आता है, बस मीन्स को चेंज करता है, वो बताया। एंड नाउ ही हैज एग्जाम्प्लिफाइड दैट कि चलो एक एग्जांपल लेके देखते हैं। किस चीज का एग्जांपल लिया? ही सेज लेट्स टेक द एग्जांपल ऑफ द आइडिया ऑफ चीफ गुड। मान लो हमारा जो एंड है, लाइक लेट्स से वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इन टर्म्स ऑफ मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स, वी आर, एक्सक्यूज माय हैंडराइटिंग प्लीज। So in terms of moral principles, let's say we are talking about the idea of chief good, right? And then that is the end, that is the end so far as that is concerned। आपका chief good आपका यहाँ पे end हो जाएगा, means नहीं होगा, is the chief good will be the end that we want to achieve। okay, we may take that, and then he defines the chief good की like वो end को define कर रहा है, that we may take that as the welfare of the community realized in its members। ठीक है, उसको define कर दिया कि chief good है welfare of the community realized in its members। there is a, and then अच्छा अब देखो, this is how passages become complex। कैसे बनते हैं complex? think of it like this। let's say मैं आपको एक स्टोरी बता रहा हूँ कि okay, I'm explaining to you। okay, so guys, there was once I went to Mumbai and मैं ट्रेन में बैठा था, and let's suppose the story is about how I met a particular person in the train। okay, and मेन स्टोरी क्या है कि मैं एक पर्सन को मिला और बाद में वहाँ पे कुछ इंटरेस्टिंग बातें हुई, मेरे को ये मेन बताना है। बट वो बताने से पहले, लेट्स सपोज ड्यूरिंग द स्टोरी आई से ओके, सो आई वाज वेटिंग ऑन द स्टेशन, and then I boarded the train, and then the train happened to be the, let's say, the Karnavati Express। and Karnavati Express का history actually by the way ये ऐसा ऐसा है, ऐसा ऐसा है। so the actual point that I want to explain to you is about how I met a certain person in the train, right? But in the process, because Karnavati Express का मैंने डिस्कशन यहाँ पे उठा लिया, and then I go on to talk about उसका origin कहाँ से आया, उसको मैं डिफाइन करने चला गया, then the listener will be confused, right? because उसको तो सोचा कि यार हम लोग तो बात यहाँ पे ये करने जा रहे थे, यहाँ पे अचानक से ट्रेन का हिस्ट्री कहाँ से आ गया, right? and then oftentimes the authors do this to make their argument very comprehensive। वो चाहते हैं कि उनकी आर्गुमेंट एकदम कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव हो, हर चीज को एग्जैक्टली डिफाइन करके जाए। बट इफ वी डोंट अंडरस्टैंड दैट इंटेंट ऑफ द ऑथर, हमारे लिए वो कॉम्प्लेक्स हो जाता है, बिकॉज हमें लगता है कि नहीं यार बात तो इस चीज की हो रही थी, यहाँ पे ये क्यों हो रहा है। सेम थिंग हैज हैपेंड हियर। यहाँ पे द ऑथर वांट्स टू डेमोन्स्ट्रेट दैट कि आइडिया ऑफ चीफ गुड is the end, which Darwinism does not change। Darwinism simply changes the way chief good is achieved, or simply helps with a better conception of chief good। But before the author can get to that, he first finds it important to define कि नहीं, पहली बार तो यार if chief good is the welfare of the community realized in its members, we first need to define कि यार पहले तो ये define करना पड़ेगा कि welfare क्या होता है। ठीक है, कि as to meaning welfare का क्या meaning होता है, और बाद में welfare को define करने के लिए author काफी बड़े tangent पे चला गया। author goes on to a long tangent to define welfare, and then he says and then we also need to define what is community। You got the idea? Did you understand it from the analogy what I'm trying to say here? Why this might have seemed so complex when in fact it is not, इतना नहीं है। ठीक है, so would once उसके बाद फिर ये community को define करने चला गया, and उसके बाद कि नहीं यहाँ पर हम लोग ये discussion, and then while defining the community he says कि नहीं पर हम लोग इस discussion को आगे नहीं ले जाएंगे, let's get back to it। okay, so we may leave welfare undefined, and for the present purposes need not distinguish community from the state। so ये सब हम लोग बात नहीं करेंगे। so all of this, frankly speaking, ये जो पूरा यहाँ से लेके there से लेके ये जो आपका ये state तक का पार्ट था ना, this was just a detour that the author took to make this argument more comprehensive, because frankly speaking the author was not writing a passage for your CAT exam, right? The author was writing his book, तो वो तो उसके हिसाब से लिखेगा ना, उसको नहीं, उसको ऐसा नहीं है कि उसको थर्ड पैराग्राफ में पूरा पॉइंट खत्म करना है, वो तो क्वेश्चन सेटर ने उस पैसेज को उठाया, ठीक है। So like so far as this passage from the RC point of view is concerned, this part was a complete detour. Okay, ठीक है. The welfare of this whole exists, of course, nowhere outside the individuals, and the individuals again have rights and duties and members, take it, etc., etc. This is the revived Hellenism, and we may call it the organic view of things urged by German idealism. ठीक है. So all you need to understand here is कि okay, that he has tried to give the example of his original idea in the context of the moral principle of the chief good. वो बताया हुआ है कि हाँ ठीक है, the welfare of this whole exists nowhere outside the individuals, and the individuals again have rights and duties and only as the members in the whole. This is revived Hellenism. तो ये आपका नया Hellenism आ गया, and we may call it the organic view of things. अगर इसके बाद फिर भी लग रहा है कि ये थोड़ा सा इनकम्प्लीट है, then आपको सही लग रहा है कि ये इनकम्प्लीट है. Why? Because again this has been taken from a book. Okay, so stick to the gist, stick to what you understand from the passage कि आपको समझ में आया है, and obviously it has to be enough to answer the questions. And बाकी पार्ट आप ये समझ जाइए कि obviously ये डिस्कशन जो है अब ये नेक्स्ट पॉइंट पे जा रहा है. यहाँ पे देखो, यहाँ पे हेलेनिज्म के ऊपर डिस्कशन करेगा, अभी जर्मन आइडियलिज्म के ऊपर और डिस्कशन करेगा. ठीक है. फाइनली just to like sum it up, in part 3 he is exemplifying his overall argument in the context of cheap good. That's it. और कुछ नहीं है पैसेज में. इसको मैं अगर सेंट्रल आइडिया पे लाऊं तो पार्ट 1 में द ऑथर एक्सप्रेसेस डिसएग्रीमेंट विद द प्रेवलेंट बिलीफ. एक प्रेवलेंट बिलीफ है, उसके अगेंस्ट अपना डिसएग्रीमेंट बताया, अपना पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू दिया, फिर अपने पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू को बिल्ड किया डार्विनिज्म के अगेंस्ट कि नहीं यार वो रेवोल्यूशनरी तो है बट वो मीन्स को चेंज करता है, एंड को नहीं. देन उसके बाद उसको एग्जांपल में दे दिया, चीफ गुड के साथ अपने पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू को एक्सप्लेन कर दिया. Central idea is very simple. Darwinism hasn't altered our ultimate moral principles, but only helped in a clearer conception of the same, as exemplified in the context of the chief good. That's it. Okay? ठीक है. अगर इस यहाँ तक भी अगर आप पैसेज को समझ जाते हैं ना, आप इतना समझ जाइए कि हमें will not face any problem at all in answering any of the questions, and we'll see that now. ठीक है, चलिए क्वेश्चन देखें. क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 देखते हैं. हमने काफी समय दे दिया इस पे, बट आई थिंक क्वेश्चंस में इतना टाइम नहीं लगेगा. सो द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन सेज, अकॉर्डिंग टू द ऑथर द डॉक्ट्रिन्स ऑफ मिस्टर डार्विन क्या है, हैव चेंज्ड आवर फिजिकल एंड मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स. अच्छा मुझे एक चीज बताइए स्टूडेंट्स, इज देयर हेल्थ, क्या आपने पूरे पैसेज में ये शब्द देखा फिजिकल मॉरल प्रिंसिपल, फिजिकल प्रिंसिपल्स की कहीं पे भी बात हो रही है? हैज दिस बीन टॉक्ड अबाउट एनीवेयर इन द पैसेज? नो, राइट? So what kind of error is this? हमने कल क्या सीखा था? What kind of error is this? Whenever in the passage you have something, whenever in the question, in the options you have something, some information that comes from outside the purview of the passage. अगर कोई ऑप्शन में आपका ऐसा इंफॉर्मेशन है जो कि पैसेज के बाहर से आ रहा है, then that option is regarded as what? It is regarded to have committed what kind of error? It is regarded to have committed the error of inclusion. Okay? ठीक है. तो ये तो इसको हम लोग क्लियरली, आप फिजिकल प्रिंसिपल्स की कहीं बात ही नहीं हुई है. मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स एंड मोर ओवर मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स तो चेंज हुए नहीं. मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स इनफैक्ट चेंज नहीं हुए. ऑथर ने बोला है कि सो फिजिकल प्रिंसिपल्स में EOI कमिट किया है इस ऑप्शन ने, एंड मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स डॉक्ट्रिन्स ऑफ मिस्टर डार्विन हैव चेंज्ड मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स. ऐसा नहीं है, इनफैक्ट इसका उल्टा है, दैट दे हैव नॉट चेंज्ड मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स. तो यहाँ पे फैक्चुअल एरर कमिट किया है. सो these are the 2 points of objection that we have with respect to this option, and we eliminate this with a capital E. Going to question option 2 now, have to be re-evaluated to correct the faults endemic in them. Okay, so this option seems to say that there are some faults which are endemic in the doctrines of Mr. Darwin. Mr. Darwin के doctrines के अंदर क्या चीज है, फॉल्ट्स है कि नहीं, उसका डिस्कशन ही नहीं हुआ है. Okay, so far as the doctrines of Darwin's internal contents, okay, so far as the internal content of these doctrines is concerned, that hasn't been discussed in the passage. How this doctrine affects the other principles, how this doctrine affects the other principles, that's what has been discussed in the passage, not whether these doctrines have some endemic faults or not. उसका discussion कहीं passage में है ही नहीं. तो ये भी आपका EOI हो गया. This will also be an error of inclusion and eliminated with a capital E. Your point of objection is faults endemic in them. Next, do not have to change our moral ideas. Yes, that's absolutely true. That's given in the first part. ये आपको यहाँ दिया हुआ है that Darwinism has indeed helped many to a truer conception of the end, but I cannot update that has either originated or modified that consumption. One point. Another point is, as of and moral principles are said to share in this general transformation. He says, I do not see why Darwinism need change our ultimate moral ideas. So according to the author, it does not change our ultimate moral ideas. Clear point of reference. इसको आप select करेंगे small s slash capital S. You guys understand what is small s slash capital S? Weak selection, strong selection. नहीं तो कल वाला वीडियो एक बार देखिएगा, मैंने उसको शॉर्ट में एक्सप्लेन किया है. कल RC6 का फर्स्ट इंस्टॉलमेंट देखिएगा. I've explained this in short. Are actually new versions of old moral rules. Okay, no. Doctrines of Mr. Darwin are like this is a very clear case of error of distortion. Doctrines of Mr. Darwin help to a truer conception of the moral principles. It's not that they are मतलब old वाले जो version है उसको change करके new बना दिया है. They, so far as the ends are concerned, they don't do anything with the ends. Ends remain the same. They only help formulate new means when the old means seem insufficient. Hope that's clear. आगे चल रहा हूं मैं. So यहाँ पे आपका आंसर होगा option 3 will be your correct answer. I hope this is clear. I'm gonna go to the next one. Just give me a second, guys. Just let me get some water. What is most probably the author's opinion of the existing moral principles of the people? अच्छा, existing moral principles के बारे में author का opinion क्या है? Okay, now what do we already know? So far as the existing moral principles of people are concerned, इसके जो end goals का discussion है, end goals में कोई भी changes की जरूरत नहीं है. There is no need for any kind of change. Delta is equal to 0. Can we say that? There is no need for any kind of change here. So far as the means are concerned, then there is some need for change. यहाँ पे कुछ change, यहाँ पे the means can definitely use some change, some value, which delta is equal to v, कुछ value रहेगा, right? You can say not equal to 0. That means there will be some change in the means, okay, right? So that's what we understand, what we have gathered from the passage. So he says the options say that first option says he thinks they have to be revamped in the light of Darwinism. यार moral principles पूरे के पूरे moral principles revamp नहीं करना है. And in fact, you also have to understand that whenever the author has mentioned only the expression moral principles without any further detail, he generally refers just to the end goals. जब भी author सिर्फ moral principles बोलता है तो वो सिर्फ end goals बोल रहा है, right? So it's like this. So if you write a number 5 and you don't write plus or minus, it's assumed that it's plus, right? So similarly, अगर आप देखो यहाँ पे, so whenever the author has mentioned just moral principles here, so he's talking just about the ends here, and when he talks about when he has to talk about the means, he specifically mentions the means here. तो वहाँ पे अलग से वो means को mention कर रहा है. When he's not mentioning the means, then he's obviously just talking about the end goals of moral principles, or moral principles just as end goals. Okay, so he thinks that the moral principles have to be revamped in the light of Darwinism. No. In fact, he believes that there is no need to revamp them. ये तो factual error हो गया. ये तो पूरा एकदम like totally against आपके central idea के, right? So this is a factual error and eliminated with a capital E. Okay. Next, he thinks that they are okay as they are and do not need any major change. Yes, so far as moral principles, just so whenever author mentions moral principles as such, without any detail, he's actually referring just to the end goals, right? So yes, so far as the end goals of moral principles are concerned, yes, they are as okay as they are and do not need any major change. ये आपका point of reference directly यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है. Right? I do not see why Darwinism need change our ultimate moral ideas. And by that he refers to the moral principles here. Correct? So उसका कोई change नहीं होने वाला यहाँ पे. So this is a smallest, इसको हम लोग smallest से select करेंगे. अच्छा, मैं इसको capitalist क्यों नहीं कर रहा, strong selection क्यों नहीं कर रहा, weak selection क्यों कर रहा हूँ? Why? Because like if there is an option, मान लीजिए suppose there was an option which said that he thinks that the end goals, the moral principle as conceived their end goals do not need any major change, then that would have been a better option, because तब वो clearly define कर रहे हैं कि हम लोग moral principles में end goals की बात कर रहे हैं. Okay, यहाँ पे it is not clear, it is you're having to like infer this कि okay like based on just the first paragraph. इसलिए मैंने इसको weak selection किया, strong selection नहीं किया. Am I making sense to you guys? हाँ? See, I understand. देखो यहाँ पे बहुत सारा जो टर्मिनोलॉजी में आपके लिए आप यहाँ पे इंट्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं, काफी लोग पहली बार देख रहे होंगे मेरे सेशंस. स्ट्रॉन्ग सिलेक्शन, वीक सिलेक्शन, EOF, ये सारी चीजें क्या है, डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. जितना जैसे आरसी में जितना समझ में आ रहा है उसको उस तरह से समझिए. हमें like just get on to the train and धीरे धीरे as we solve more and more sessions daily, you'll get the hang of this. ठीक है? I've had students who joined, सबने मेरे जितने भी स्टूडेंट्स से सीखा है and they have scored really well, and I'm talking about 99.9 in your exams like Cadence at, they have, उन्होंने भी इस तरीके से सीखा है. हाँ, इसके स्पेशल क्लासेस जो आपके हैं कि नहीं EOF क्या होता है, वीक सिलेक्शन क्या होता है, स्ट्रॉन्ग सिलेक्शन क्या होता है, उसके एक एक सेशन हम लोग वीकली उठा लेंगे जहाँ पे हम लोग थियोरी का बात करेंगे. But don't worry about that. Let's say I always think that the best way to learn is to actually learn while doing it, right? तो ये bits and pieces में आपको ये चीजें आपको मालूम होती रहेंगी, आपको धीरे धीरे पता चल जाएगा error of inclusion क्या है, strong selection and weak selection के बीच में आप थोड़ा सा difference आप already समझ चुके होंगे यहाँ पे, right? Strong selection is when we are very sure about the option. Weak selection is कि नहीं यार छोटा सा reservation है इस option में, but otherwise it's good to go. Okay, so don't worry about that. Just stick with the sessions. इसको जो हम लोग समझ रहे हैं उस पर ध्यान दीजिए, जो डाउट्स आ रहे हैं वो पूछो. ठीक है? He thinks that it may be a good idea to have a modicum of the immoral Darwinism. Now, Darwinism has nowhere in the passage been regarded as immoral. कहीं पे भी इसको immoral word नहीं आया. ये आपका point of reservation जिस option में आपका होगा immoral. So that's an error of distortion. Distortion का मतलब क्या होता है? कोई चीज जो आपको दी गई है, जो आपकी as it is दी गई है, उसको आप थोड़ा सा हल्का सा tweak कर दीजिए. Right? Something that is not called for as per the passage. आपने जरा सा कुछ उसको always डाल दिया, never डाल दिया, only डाल दिया, यहाँ पे Darwinism के साथ immoral डाल दिया. The author doesn't refer to Darwinism as immoral, hasn't indicated that, right? तो हल्का सा बस एक word डाल दो, बाद में meaning change हो जाता है. That's a distortion. That's an error of distortion. So you eliminate that with the capital E. Okay? Cannot be determined from the passage. नहीं यार, it can be determined from the passage. Like the author does believe that moral principles don't need a change. So your correct answer here will be, what do you say, option 2, okay, with a small s आपका select हो रहा है. Okay, आगे चल रहा हूँ. According to the author, the moral code of Christianity के ऊपर क्या डिस्कशन हुआ है, ऑथर ने क्या किया है, बोला है कि we have the moral code of Christianity, accepted in part and in part accepted in part. अच्छा, ये आपका यहाँ पे मिसप्रिंट है, सॉरी. And rejected practically by all save a few fanatics. So what he means is that the moral code of Christianity, according to the author, has been accepted in part, but practically has been rejected by everyone, except for a few fanatics, according to the author. Okay. So, ठीक है. So अब देखते हैं यहाँ पे, is not followed by most people. Yes, that's true, right? That makes sense. वही तो बोला यहाँ पे, that it is rejected practically by all, except for a few people, few fanatics. It has been practically rejected by all. So yes, this will be a smallest scenario, like smallest / capitalist, weak selection, strong selection, almost a strong selection बोल सकते हैं, somewhere between a weak and strong selection. आगे देखते हैं. Is in danger due to opposition to Darwinism. Now this is a distortion. कैसे? देखो, author ने ये बोला है कि okay, your current means which relate with the ideals of the moral creed of Christianity, they are not founded on any rational foundation. इनका कोई rational foundation नहीं है, right? That's what the author says कि नहीं यार, इनका कोई rational foundation नहीं है, and hence when you get rid of these, जब आप इनको हटा देंगे, then obviously there will be a vacuum that will be created, right? Obviously there will be a vacuum that will be created, right? Kind of a vacuum that will be created, and this vacuum, and this is where Darwinism might come into the picture. This is where Darwinism might come into the picture and help us out. Correct? Now, Darwinism is helping us when this means of Christian idol wala jo moral code of Christianity अगर हटा दिया जा रहा है, तो फिर Darwinism is helping. But Darwinism hasn't directly posed any danger to the moral code of Christianity. It's not like Darwinism, you still have moral code of Christianity and Darwinism is coming in and like pushing it away. ऐसा नहीं हुआ है. Darwinism comes into the picture when someone has already let go of the moral code of Christianity according to the passage, and then there is a vacuum, and then Darwinism comes into the picture. It's not like Darwinism is posing a danger by pushing it away, right? While it still exists there. तो ये आप देख रहे हैं ये आइडिया लेवल पे कैसे डिस्टॉर्ट किया गया है इस ऑप्शन. तो ये आपका एलिमिनेट हो जाएगा विद कैपिटल D. Is followed by a vast majority of people. Factual error. Author has said just the opposite कि नहीं, it has been rejected by most, right? So ये भी आपका कैपिटल E से एलिमिनेट हो गया. Is totally ignored by all true Christian. Now the author hasn't what do you say, detailed or classified the people who follow the moral code of Christianity as true or untrue Christians. तो ये भी आपका ये आपका error of assumption and distortion दोनों हो जाएगा. Because assumption इसलिए because some students might have assumed कि हाँ नहीं वो शायद गलत सोच लिया होगा, खुद से इन्फर करके सोच लिया होगा कि अच्छा वो true Christian की बात कर. The author hasn't talked about in terms of true Christian or not true Christian. He simply says moral creed of Christianity has been rejected by almost everyone except a few fanatics. हाँ, अब आप इसमें से ये इन्फर करने जा रहे हैं कि अच्छा fanatics तो true Christian नहीं होंगे, तो हमारा assumption हो गया. That's our assumption. Okay, we can't do that. So you eliminate that also with a capital E, and your correct answer will be option 1. Okay, I hope that's clear. आगे चल रहा हूँ मैं. Question number 4. It is implied in the passage that Hellenic idol is not a proper substitute of the Christian idol. No. In fact, just the opposite has been implied. अब देखिए paragraph 3 में देखिए. He says it is here, like जब भी आपके blindness and practical confusion वाला state आता है, vacuum वाला state आता है जो हमने यहाँ पे बात किया. In this vacuum वाला state, Darwinism with all its tendencies, we may group under that name, seems destined to intervene. It might interfere here. वहाँ पे वो help कर सकता है. It will make itself felt, etc., and might have us return to a non-Christian and perhaps a Hellenic idol. Correct. So Darwinism might in fact help return, might help fill this vacuum with a Hellenic idol. So for Darwinism तो आपको help कर रहा है ना Hellenic idol से ये fill करने में. Then if that's the case, then how can a Hellenic idol not be a which means that the author, author के हिसाब से the Hellenic idol might in fact be a proper substitute of the Christian idol, because according to the author, Darwinism is helping fill the vacuum left by the Christian idols with a Hellenic idol. तो बाद में not a proper substitute तो नहीं होगा ना. Author ने भी ये बोला हुआ passage में कि okay, Hellenic idol is coming to the picture by Darwinism to replace the Christian idol. Got it? So not a proper substitute तो आप imply नहीं है. In fact, the author has implied that it might be a proper substitute. तो ये तो आपका eliminate हो गया with a capital E. ठीक है, factual error बोलेंगे हम लोग इसको, because it's just the opposite of what the author has said. Whenever an option says just the opposite of what has been said in the passage, it is considered a factual error. जिसको हम लोग लिखते हैं EOF. EOF is error of fact, but उसको बोलने में factual error better रहता है, इसलिए उसको factual error बोलते हैं, but लिखते हैं EOF. ठीक है? What mankind needs is a Hellenic idol rather than a Christian one. Now that is something that might be implied, because that's what we discussed now, right? कि हाँ, जब ये आपका vacuum खाली हो गया, and then Darwinism might come into the picture and might help you get back to non-Christian idols or maybe Hellenic idols, जो कि आपको यहाँ दिया हुआ है passage में, that and a return to a non-Christian and perhaps a Hellenic idol. So yes, you can probably say that what mankind, according to the author or the passage, implies that what mankind needs is the Hellenic idol rather than a Christian one. शायद, but it is not very certain. ये आप implied है, ये आप थोड़ा सा infer करके जा रहे हो, तो आप इसको capital S नहीं करेंगे, आप इसको smallest weak selection ही करोगे. ठीक है? Darwinism is more Christian than Hellenic. Darwinism is neither Christian and nor Hellenic. Darwinism is the tool that helps you form a new set of beliefs with respect to the means of a certain set of moral principles. डार्विनिज्म खुद से क्रिश्चियन हेलेनिक नहीं है. डार्विनिज्म तो बस आपका टूल है ना, जो आपको हेलेनिक आइडियल्स लाने में हेल्प कर रहा है. So this is an error of distortion, eliminated with a capital E. Fanatics do not understand what Darwinism really is. Probably हो सकता है because they I guess in the context of the passage these are people who are following the Christian moral code. So but it's not very direct. Like इसमें आपको like you'll have to make this will be kind of an assumption. Okay, because like Darwinism, like what do you say, Christian code the moral Christian code is rejected by almost all except a few fanatics. तो उन्होंने रिजेक्ट नहीं किया है, जिन्होंने रिजेक्ट कर दिया वहां पे आपका शायद what do you say, Darwinism might come into the picture, and hence these are the people who might understand Darwinism and the fanatics might not understand. So आप देख रहे हैं कि हम लोग को you're having to make a lot of assumptions here, right? So this will be based on a long set of assumptions and presuppositions, which is something that you do not want to go for if you already have a good option available. तो आप यहाँ पे नहीं जाना चाहेंगे. ठीक है, तो you eliminate this with a small e, weak elimination. So your correct answer will be option 2. Question 5 पे आते हैं हम लोग. What according to the passage is the chief good? Being good and kind. Chief good तो बहुत ही clear दिया हुआ है आपको ये. There's a very clear POR for this. We may take that refers to the chief good as the welfare of the community realized in its members, right? So that's very directly given here. The welfare of the community realized in its members. This is a very direct point of reference question. तो ये तो आपका कैपिटल एस से सिलेक्ट हो जाएगा. स्ट्रॉन्ग सिलेक्शन. Being good and kind to all fellow human beings. Being good and kind to all fellow human beings is an external idea, and hence this commits an error of inclusion. Being good and kind to all fellow human beings, this idea has not been discussed in the passage. Although the author might agree with this or not, that is a different point altogether. वो अलग point है, but ये discuss नहीं हुआ है passage में आपको. Clearly UI and eliminated with the capital E. The greatest good of the greatest number. No. See, if you are inferring welfare of the community realized in its members, ये जो आपको यहाँ पे दिया हुआ था point of reference में, welfare of community realized in its members, ये अगर आप लेके चल रहे हैं, what do you say, from this you are inferring the greatest good of the greatest number of people, then still you cannot go for this option, because why do you want to go for something that you are inferring? मतलब आपके पास एक direct चीज दी हुई है which is given word by word, जो आपको word by word दिया हुआ है, and then you have something which you are inferring from that, which is inferred. So यहाँ पे आपके पास direct option, यहाँ पे आपके पास inferred option. Obviously you will prefer the direct option, right? Not the inferred option. So but हाँ ठीक है, आप इसको capital इससे eliminate नहीं करना है, तो आप you can still eliminate this with a small e. Cannot be determined from the passage, though it can be determined from the passage as it is given very directly. So this is also eliminated with a capital E. Your correct answer here is clearly option 3. Okay, done. So हमने सारे questions देख लिए हैं आज के. अभी मुझे बताइए कि आपके doubts क्या हैं. What are the doubts, if any, that you guys might have? I'll try to address them, and yeah, that's about it, guys. I understand that हम लोग थोड़ा सा तेज जा रहे हैं because हमें 1 घंटे में रोज एक आरसी खत्म करना है, and that's why my expectation from you would be कि आप ये रोज एक आरसी आपका सुबह ये 6 बजे पब्लिश हो जाता है, आप इसको सॉल्व करके आएँ, उसको अच्छे से अपने डाउट्स को लिख के या कहीं पे नोट करके रखें, so that when you put the doubts in the comment section, I'll be able to address them right away. Okay, so queries, concerns, doubts. अहमद, आपके कोई? अमीर अहमद, नहीं, नो कंसर्न्स. अच्छा, एनीवन एल्स गाइस? किसी के कोई भी कंसर्न्स हैं तो बताइए. बाद में भी अगर आप कमेंट्स में डाल देंगे तो आई विल ट्राई टू लुक चेक द कमेंट्स लेटर एज वेल, एंड मैं आपके डाउट्स अगर हो सकता है तो कमेंट्स में भी एड्रेस करने की कोशिश करूंगा. सो दैट्स अबाउट इट. अच्छा, फाइनली इंफॉर्मेशन, दीज पैसेजेस लाइक कैन बी सॉल्व्ड इन ऑलमोस्ट एन टाइम्ड इंटरफेस. आप इनको टाइम्ड इंटरफेस में सॉल्व कर सकते हैं. इनको सॉल्व करने का लिंक is available. Thank you. इनको सॉल्व करने का लिंक इज अवेलेबल इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन, ओके, ऑफ व्हाट यू से ऑफ द वीडियो। ये जो आपका कोर्स है RCs at 6 PM, ये कोर्स दिस हैज बीन पब्लिश्ड एज सेपरेट कोर्स ऑन आवर प्लेटफॉर्म। उस प्लेटफॉर्म पे जाके आप ये कोर्स पे क्लिक करें, एनरोल करें, फ्री है ये सभी के लिए एज ऑफ नाउ। एंड वहाँ पे आप उसको एनरोल करके, अब वंस यू एनरोल, एवरी मॉर्निंग आपके RCs, इनफैक्ट मैं आई थिंक मॉर्निंग में नहीं, ये आपके आज फ्रॉम टुडे ऑनवर्ड्स विल बी पब्लिशिंग द RCs फ्रॉम 8 PM। तो कल का RC आज आप शाम को 8 बजे आपका पब्लिश हो जाएगा। सो यू हैव लाइक ऑलमोस्ट 22 hours टू सॉल्व इट। आप उसको आज शाम को सॉल्व कर ले, कल सॉल्व कर ले, टाइम फॉर्मेट में है, एंड दीज आर लाइक क्वालिटी RCs फ्रॉम योर कैट पेपर्स। सो या ओके, दैट्स अबाउट इट गाइज। और कोई भी क्वेरीज या कुछ भी हो, टेलीग्राम लिंक भी है, वो भी आपको डिस्क्रिप्शन में मिल जाना चाहिए। And that's about it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. Thank you so much. Goodbye.